is anybody eating this? And he just takes the plate. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of just rambling on why I love this character. But, this movie is a perfect movie.
Yes.
Right? Like, this movie is an absolute masterpiece. Like this is probably the best film that we've covered on franchise.
This is the best. This is probably the best film we'll ever discuss on this podcast. So
I don't know. We got Jaws the Revenge coming up, man.
We got Jaws the Revenge coming up. Oh. Yeah, you're right. Hooper doesn't show up till 30 minutes into the movie. Or a lot of stuff happens. We even see Quint before Hooper, right? Or do I have the order out of?
No, you've got it right. Yep.
That's what a great introduction, right? Of Quint, right? You have this chaos and all this town hall meeting. People are raising their voices, and you just hear the screech in the blackboard, and then the people kind of part, and we just slowly dolly into Robert Shaw there in the corner. It's just everything about every character is so memorable in this movie. These are three as you guys have said, when we can go around in circles talking about it, but these are three of the best characters in fiction, period. And that's why the film works.
But you can see some of that tension that you said is on set there between them. Like, another scene that I love between Quint and Hooper is when Quint throws that rope at him and says, "Tie me this kind of knot." And he's pissed off, tying it, throws it back at Quint, and Quint doesn't even look at the knot because the knot doesn't care about the knot. He doesn't care about the knot. He just throws it aside because he just was testing him. But the fact that he actually knows how to tie the knot is completely irrelevant.
He's like, "You didn't say how long you wanted it." Yeah. Trying to get their last word, and they're trying to one up each other, because it's like the blue collar versus the white collar guys. He's like, "You think all this shark proof cage and all that stuff?" He's giving them crap about all his technology, right? But at the end, right, Quint is broken because he's like, the shark is going down with 3 barrels. The boat is broken. Everything Quint knows about how these things should be going aren't happening. So then he's like, "Hooper, what can we do with his technology?" Like, he pulls out his guns. He is like, he has to defer to Hooper at that point, and both of them end up being wrong, and Brody's the one that saves the day because Hooper drops the needle. So they all have their part to play, and Brody, of the 3, Brody's my favorite because I just love Roy Schneider. Like, he's like this great everyman hero, and I think that's what Spielberg captured that. I mean, I love Charlton Heston, but if it was Charlton Heston, you'd be like, "Oh, this is Moses on a boat." You wouldn't feel like the underdog nature of the sheriff character because it's the town against him because he's new and he's an outsider. And a lot of islands have that mentality. It's like, "Oh, you weren't born here, then you're not really one of us." And he's fighting that on top of his just trying to keep people safe. And I love Roy Schneider. This film, rewatching it makes you, I don't think I should, but it makes you want to go rewatch Sequest because he was the captain of Sequest DSV. So.
Jaws is better than Sequest.
Yeah.
Yes, that much is certain. Jaws the Revenge might not be better than Sequest, but Jaws is better than Sequest.
Yeah. I think, Brody's your everyman. He leaves New York City. As I recommend everybody in New York City to leave New York City for New England because it's much better. Period. But it's such a great, I think, he's got his wife and his kids. He wanted to bring them someplace safer. He's in charge, right? And he's learning as he goes. He's like, "What do you mean I don't have the authority to close the beaches?" And, everything he's doing is impulsive to help keep people safe. And that's how he is. He wants his son out of the boat. That's a great scene, flipping through the pages, and his wife sees the
yes.
that famous picture. Get out of the water now.
Didn't you hear your father?
Yeah, I mean, it's
get out of the boat.
But his character is just, I've met people that are afraid to be on the water. I've met people, afraid to be on boats and whatnot. And he's got the life jacket on. You know what I mean? It's just perfect. And he has a few drinks to kind of alleviate the pain. That scene when Mrs. Kittner slaps him, so authentic, all of it just so authentic. And you just feel for Brody. He's got the world on his shoulders and he's trying to do the right things. He's being influenced in directions that he knows are wrong. And even when they do everything right by trying to protect the beach, the damn shark gets around him, right? And gets into the pond and almost kills his son. It's powerful, but again, he's such a believable character, a down to earth. And that's why you're right, Zach. Charlton Heston, it would never have worked because he's the expected hero. And back then in the 70s, you get slotted in these roles. You can't leave it. They would not look. You couldn't watch Charlton Heston play that part with any believability that he's a humble, he's whatever he is. He's 6'2", he's striking, all these other things. Roy Scheider just looks like a dad. He looks like an average police officer. He has that feel about him. He's the reluctant hero that's forced into an extraordinary circumstance and winds up on top, but just barely.
Yes, yeah. yes. But had we had Charlton Heston in this film, we would have had the classic line, "Get your stinking jaws off me, you damn dirty shark."
Were you waiting for that, Brandon? Were you proud of yourself now? Okay. I could see Charlton Heston as Quint, maybe. But not as Brody.
I can't see Charlton Heston in this movie at all.
I'm trying to think of, like a Matthew McConaughey type, or some of the folks that have kind of redefined themselves if they've gotten older and have been able to pull off roles. But again, in the 70s, that was really hard to do. That was not a common thing. Once people, if it's kind of the whole Shatner thing, right? Everybody looks at him through today's eyes, but back when Star Trek was cast or whatever, they were looking for a leading man, and that's how he would always be cast, as a leading man. That's how he saw himself, and that's how actors in those days saw themselves. You were either A-lister, leading man, type material. And Roy Scheider did fine, in Hollywood. I mean, French Connection was big.
2010, the year we make contact.
Yeah,
that movie is great.
I love 2010. I do. That's not a joke.
Have you guys seen All That Jazz?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
So picture him as Bob Fosse, singing and dancing and all that. The guy was very, very talented, and that's what I'm saying. He was kind of behind the scenes. So Jaws, obviously, it pulled him up to another level as far as notoriety. But Robert Shaw was the only A-lister. But Robert Shaw did not look like Robert Shaw. Okay, he didn't look like the bad guy in the Bond movies. He didn't look like the hero in the war films. He's done a lot of those types of movies. He redefined himself and was unrecognizable in that movie. You would not have known it was Robert Shaw. Watch any of the Bond movies or the war movies that Robert Shaw was in, and blonde. Very attractive, very leading man. He redefined himself for that role.
So I'm going to ask you guys, do you consider Jaws a horror movie? Ken, it's your favorite movie. What do you think?
Well, I will tell you that outside of Psycho, I don't think there was a movie that scared people to the level that Jaws did, and had an impact on society like Jaws did. For those that weren't around when that movie came out, and all the books and I mean, it was what drove kids into learning about sharks. It was what created, shark tournaments to get rid of them. It scared people right out of the water. So yeah, I guess in the sense that when you talk about the sheer horror, the helplessness that you have when you're not in your own environment, that being in the sea. I mean, humans don't stand a chance. If they live, it's by luck. That's it. Either the shark decides it doesn't want you, or you stung it just long enough to say, I'll go get a seal. But you don't stand a chance. You don't stand a chance. And what's ironic was, this weekend, look it up on the Boston Globe or whatnot, 25-foot great white shark off Martha's Vineyard.
Wow, really?
Yes.
25.
That's unbelievable. Videotaped. See, it's out there, and
I'm sure it's on YouTube with John Williams music right now.
But that's incredible when you think about it, guys. And if you look at what happened was the like I said, the impact. People who lived and made livings on the water, who loved to surf, who loved to do all those things, they didn't go back in the water. People were afraid to go. Kids like me, my age, I was 8 years old. We went to the town pool. It was a hot summer day when we saw Jaws. Me and my brother, we walked all the way home. It was a long walk for little kids because we couldn't stand being in the water. We were too terrified in a pool. And people say, well, that's crazy. And it's like, well, think of the way the movie was filmed. It was the first movie that was filmed at water level. You had the camera half in and half out of the water. So you saw everything from the perspective of either the shark or the swimmers. And when you're in a pool, that's what you see. And that's all you could think about. And you're like, the hell with this. We're out of here. And I was sleeping in my parents' room for weeks and weeks and weeks. I was that impacted by that movie. And I know so many other people that were absolutely terrorized by that film. Again, when Psycho came out, women especially were terrified to take showers. That was the impact that it had. It was so shocking. Jaws beat it. And so, yeah, from that extent, it was a horror movie. It's a great movie, but it was a very suspenseful and very terrifying film.
Awesome. Well, Zach, is there anything else that we need to talk about? Anything that we missed that you want to touch base on here?
Yeah, I'm just going to hit two quick things. Just to wrap back around to the horror movie part. Interesting bit of trivia was where they go to Ben Harper's boat, and we see his dead body come out.
Ben Gardner.
Gardner, excuse me. Harper. Who's Harper? I
don't know. Rob Schneider, Lorraine Gary. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Wait till we do Star Trek 3 one day. I'm going to rip it up. I'll get all the names wrong, even though I love the movie.
Christopher Plummer was great in Star Trek 3, let me tell you. So, but when they go to the boat, and I remember when I was a kid, right, like watching this film, like the horror struck with me, right, and then it still holds up. The jump scares of this movie still hold up, right? When you see that face pop out of that hole, like, oh my god, right, that's terrifying. And then he drops the tooth. I drop it, I get out of there. But that was actually a reshoot because the jump scare of the famous jump scare where Brody's, churning the water, throwing stuff off the side, and then the shark pops up, and he the famous shot where he pops up and backs all the way into the cabin with Quint, and he says, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." Not "we're gonna need a bigger boat." You're gonna need a bigger boat. Very misquoted line. Which, by the way, Ken, is it true that Schneider ad-libbed that? Because that's what I heard.
I heard the same thing. Yeah.
All the best lines from movies are misquoted.
It's true. Luke, I am your father. No, it's no, I am your father. But anyway, that jump scare was so effective in the preview screenings that Spielberg said, "Oh, that's great. I'm going to go add another one." So he added the one at the boat. He's going to add one more, and it worked. Right? He's in the preview screening, and he's like, "Oh, good. It scared him." But then when they got to the original jump scare of the shark popping up and Brody, jumping back, the reaction was half as much. And he learned an important lesson there was once you do that jump scare, the audience is on their guard and they're expecting that kind of thing. So you can only do it when you only got one silver bullet you can shoot in these movies with these jump scares. And he realized that, and he tried to incorporate that in his movies going forward, who doesn't kind of milk that. But one of the other images that stuck out to me was when the shark's in the pond and it bites off the leg of that guy, that boater dude. And you just see the leg float down to the bottom. Like, to me, that's like the one image that stuck to me when I was a kid. That was like the most terrifying thing ever. So people say the mechanical shark looked fake and stuff. I'm going to say, like, to be honest, if there's one thing, like, this is a perfect movie, okay? But if there's one thing, I'm like, yeah, about the mixing the footage of the live shark with the mechanical shark, the fake shark. I understand they did their best with the proportions of like the cage and stuff, but the proportions of the shark itself are off. That looks nothing like, and I understand it's a fake shark and a real shark, but that real shark they're shooting looks nothing like the model shark, and it's kind of distractingly like not the shark you see in all the other scenes when you cut to that live footage. And it doesn't take me out of the movie, but I can clearly tell that's a different shark.
Well, then it is taking you out of the movie. And so I got to ask you, though, like, how many times of watching that movie did it take for you to realize that? Because, I guess I don't even notice it. I know that there's stock footage in there just because of how it moves versus how the robotic one moves. But I don't know, it doesn't bother me because there's only so much they can do with a robotic shark. Right? So, like, I don't know, the incorporating the live stock footage doesn't bother me in the slightest.
The scene where you see the live shark just swim off into, because the visibility in New England, there's a lot of life in these waters. So there's a lot of plankton. There's a lot of churn in the ocean here. the visibility is very low. 3-4 feet maybe. So when you see that tail kind of go off into the distance, and Hooper's kind of taking his time, and then that shark face